Mary, did you know? Today we're going to welcome in the fourth Advent, love. If you want to pause for a moment and get 4 candles or tea lights and light them, you can cozy up to our fire and join us for Advent. Yay, it's almost Christmas. I had the privilege this week to hold my new granddaughter, Elise Marie, for the first time. She's 6 days old today. Such a miracle, so perfect and beautiful, and watching her cuddle up and bond to her mom and dad. Did Mary know when she held her sweet one? The angels told her those things, and the shepherds came and confirmed it, and later some important rich kings came to say the same thing. But how could she even imagine the scope of what was going to happen in her lifetime and happen for the world? How could she know that as she loved her little babe, she was welcoming love into the world? How could she have known that during his lifetime, he would turn water into wine, heal blind and lame people, walk on water, calm storms? How could she have known that he would be calming storms for many years to come, both external and internal storms? How could she have known that as the Lord of all creation, he would allow himself to be crucified, and the personal agony that that would bring to her? She couldn't possibly imagine all of that, but she knew one important thing. She knew that God knew. When my mom died when I was 8, the last thing she said to my dad was, "God is still on the throne." This statement was confirmed many years later by his friend Henry, who said on that night he had trailed along up to the hospital with my dad because he just couldn't have his buddy do his last goodbye by himself. God is still on the throne. Wonderful things, agonizing things. Today we have lots of things, lots of changes, revolving orders, revolving limits, and did I mention changes? We think of Mary as she welcomed the love of the Lord of the universe into her heart and her home, as she went on an adventure with God and welcomed the upheaval of life and then watched as Jesus' life changed the world as they knew it. Here's a poem that was written about Jesus almost 100 years ago. One Solitary Life. Many of you'll know this, but sometimes it's good to read it again. He was born in an obscure village, the child of a peasant woman. He grew up in another obscure village where he worked in a carpenter shop until he was 30. He never wrote a book. He never held an office. He never went to college. He never visited a big city. He never traveled more than 200 miles from the place where he was born. He did none of the things that are usually associated with greatness. He had no credentials but himself. He was only 33. His friends ran away. One of them denied him. He was turned over to his enemies, and he went through the mockery of a trial. He was nailed to a cross between 2 thieves. While dying, his executioners gambled for his clothing, the only property that he had on earth. When he was dead, he was laid in a borrowed grave through the pity of a friend. 19 centuries have come and gone, now 20 centuries, and today Jesus is the central figure of the human race and the leader of mankind's progress. All the armies that have ever marched, all the navies that have ever sailed, all the parliaments that have ever sat, all the kings that have ever reigned, put together, have not affected the life of mankind on earth as powerfully as that one solitary life. Mary, did you know? I spoke on the first week of Advent about the song, I Love to Tell the Story, how in the last line it says, "And when I stand in glory, I'll sing a new song. 'Twill be that old, old story that I have loved so long." I once had an experience that stayed with me forever. I was leaning on a railing in Montreal, beside the Montreal Stadium, and I struck up a conversation with someone my age. I made a valiant effort and quickly used up all my known French, and then we switched to English. As we got talking, I began to tell him the story of Jesus, the old story from the beginning, how people used to try to reach God, how they tried to be good, and they tried to keep the law, and how they made sacrifices and only paid for last week's sins. Then Jesus came, and he paid for their sins once and for all, and lived in their hearts and changed them from the inside and how now, because of Jesus, we can know God's love and acceptance. As the story wound down, my friend hesitated and said, "Can you tell me that story?" At my questioning look, he said, "Can you tell me that story again?" That had such an impact on my life. As we celebrate Christmas, let's never forget to tell the story of Jesus and his love. Bless you.